political environment in Baghdad and within the government. Could you say a word or two to us? What has been the impact on the stability of the government, on its capacity to carry forward its government program? And just tell us a little bit about how you are dealing with the aftermath. Has it knocked the government off course? Is this something you've been able to set to one side and you're now focused back on the immediate delivery of all of the requirements the citizens require from your government? Could you just tell us, where are we today?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I think Iraq has been caught in between the conflict between Washington and Tehran. In fact, for many other countries, this issue, it is a foreign issue. But for Iraq, it is an internal one. Why it is an internal one? That has to do with the historical relationship with the United States and the role of the United States, which was so important for Iraq. And the United States played an important role to remove the regime of Saddam Hussein. And they were there. In fact, after 2003, we had about 150,000 American soldiers in Iraq. But it is also, Iraq has got strong relationship with Iran, which is a neighboring country. So the conflict between these two states is, in a way, an internal issue. Why it is an internal issue? As I said, after 2003, the United States were there, and they have got great effect in the internal politics in Iraq, but that is also valid for the Iranian. So we are worried about this, and we are concerned where it goes, this conflict. Is it going to be kind of war? And if it will be a war, is it going to be a proxy war? And where is the field of the war? Are we part of it? And to be honest, all these questions has been raised by many politicians, but also by many Iraqis. Why we must be part of this conflict? This is the main question. Is it possible for the Iraqis, including Iraqi government, to manage this conflict? The answer is no, of course. It's too far away from us. It is a conflict between two countries, but at the same time, it is a conflict inside Iraq. So we are worried about this, and I think we have seen the result, part of some elements of the conflict in Iraq. And to be honest, we don't know what it will be the future, because we don't know how this conflict will be developed. So that's why we are worried.
Do you believe it's added additional intensity to the popular protest? There was a moment where people thought, well, maybe this would supersede the protests that have been taking place since last October. It appears, certainly looking at last week and last weekend, as if it's almost given more intensity. The young people protesting in the squares there, saying they do not want to become part of the kind of proxy, not just the proxy war, but the risk that perhaps that proxy war then influences and paralyzes the capacity of the government to respond to their very immediate needs in terms of their livelihoods. I think most people here will know, so close to 600 individuals killed in these protests, over 20,000 injured, and some terrible treatment of protesters by militias who've been kidnapped and used and so on. This is a moment almost of ungovernability. Is there a risk that in this current situation the government loses control in a way of that capacity to manage it? Or are you going to use this moment to try to gain control in a way of the debate? Could you just tell us how you're thinking about this?
Robin, as you know, the government nowadays is a caretaker government. And in fact, this government became caretaker government because of the protests.
Yeah.
The situation in Iraq, if you go back to the first 9 months, was quite positive and was going well on economic level, security-wise, relationship, internal relationship between different political parties, the relationship between Erbil and the federal government. Also, we reestablished good relationship with Gulf countries, all Gulf countries. So it went well until September. And in October, the demonstrations started. And as a result, and what happened during this period, of course, we are all worried about what happened, and we are all sorry about what happened. And we regret, in fact, all governments, ministers regret what happened, and we are against it. And in fact, the government formed also a committee of investigation, and this committee must continue. And even when we will have a new government, it is the task of the new government to continue this investigation and to bring the criminals to the justice. This is part of it. But on the other hand, as caretaker government, I think we became weaker, in fact. This is a fact. We became weaker, so we cannot manage all these things. You see, there are protests, but there are also conflicts between or among the political parties, especially in the South. And the political parties, some of them, they have got also military wings. So this is the current situation in Iraq. We have got political parties. We have got military wings of these political parties. There are conflicts between or among these political parties. But on the other hand, we have got demonstration, especially in Baghdad. The demonstration in Baghdad is different than what is happening in the South. The demonstration in Baghdad, especially in Tahrir Square, is a peaceful demonstration, and they are demanding what the people are demanding, in fact, Iraqi people. But what is happening in some areas in the South, it is a kind of conflict or struggle for power in some areas in the South.
Thank you. Let me, Janine Plachet, maybe I can bring you in here because I think it'd be relevant. How do you see the prospects for, let's call it a permanent government being able to be established in this moment of instability and uncertainty? What are your biggest challenges and what are your objectives in this kind of moment?
Well, my objective...
In 3 minutes, you know, yeah.
Thank you so much. My objective would be stability in Iraq. Not only my objective, but I think that most of the people in Iraq would love to have a country stable, prosperous, etc., like many other countries. And the problem right now is when you refer to the recent targeted killing of Qasem Soleimani and al-Mohandes, is that it made one thing clear, that the rules of engagement have changed. And many people think, okay, maximum restraint, maybe this is the end. But frankly, I don't think we have seen the end of it yet. So what the new modus operandi will look like, it will remain to be seen. And in the absence of an all-out war, I would say that Iraq remains a very vulnerable place to be. And therefore, I expect Iraqi authorities to continue their non-stop balancing act to prevent their country from yet again becoming a theater for different competitions. And that takes away, and here comes my great concern, that takes away their time and energy, lots of time and energy, while they need this time and energy urgently to build resilience at the society level and to build resilience at the state level and to address the socioeconomic grievances. People are out on the streets of Iraq for 4 months in a row, expressing their hopes for better times, expressing their hopes for a country free from corruption, partisanship, and free from foreign interference. Well, the opposite is true today. So the Deputy Prime Minister Fuad Hussein just said, very rightly so, that the government has a caretaker status. To find a way out of the domestic crisis, the Prime Minister handed in his resignation at the end of November. But so far, political leaders do not agree on a successor. And that to me is a problem if you want to address public trust, if you want to address the urgent needs of the Iraqi people. So what I fear right now is that geopolitical and regional developments eclipse domestic, urgent, unfinished business. So here's my concern.
Right. We should come to whether you have instruments at your disposal to be able to tackle this challenge. But let me turn now to the President of the Kurdistan region. perhaps you could give us a quick sense, and we may need to have the microphones, the headphones on. Where does this leave the Kurdistan region? Where are you able, or are you almost separating yourselves yet again? Can you? I don't mean so, no, physically, obviously. You had the referendum. That didn't go exactly according to plan. But in terms of, can you insulate yourselves from this instability? Is that part of the objective? Where does it leave the Kurdistan region?
خوي دو سه شت هيا مهمة بزانين يكم اوي كاستا لعراق بزاره اما باسي جيلك دكين كعمريان لبازده صالة حتى 23 صال نا صداميان لبيره نا امريكاش اما جيلك داوای جیانێکی باشتر دەکاتن لە عێراقدا خۆی مقارنە دەکات لەگەڵ هەموو شوێنەکانی تر و لە دەتوانێت پێویستی بە سەفەرکردنیش نییە هەر دەتوانێت هەر لەسەر ئینتەرنێت و سوشیال میدیا ببینێت لە دنیای دەرەوە چه هەیە ئەم جیلە ئەمڕۆ ماندوو بووە لە حکومڕانیەکی 16-17 ساڵە کە ناتوانێت کەمترین پێداویستی سرویس بۆیان دابین بکاتن ئەمە وای کردووە ئەم خەڵکە ماندوو بووە و ئێمە دەبینن پرۆسەیەک هەیە پێی دەڵێت پرۆسەیەکە هەر 4 ساڵ انتخاباتە دەچن بۆ انتخابات و لە نەتیجە ئەوەی کە دەردەچێ ئەوە نییە کە ئەم جیلە تەمەنای بۆ دەکاتن ئەوەی لە هەرێمی کوردستان ئێمە ناتوانین خۆمان جیا بکەینەوەی لەوەی کە ئێستا لە عێراق دەگوزارێت ئێمە بەشێکین لەم وڵاتە و بە تەکید ئەوەی کە لەوێ ڕوودەداتن تەئسیر لە وەزعی ئێمەش دەکاتن ئەوەی کە ئێستا مهمە هەمومان بزانین عێراقی پێش 1 ئۆکتۆبەر زۆر جیاوازە لەگەڵ عێراقی 2 ئۆکتۆبەر و زۆر مهمە و گرنگە سیاسەتمەدارەکانی عێراق ئەمە تێبگەن گەلی عێراق جارێکی تر قبول ناکاتەوە وەزع بڕواتەوە بەرەو پێش 1 ئۆکتۆبەر خەڵکی عێراق ملەتی عێراق شایستەی ژیانێکی باشترن و پێم وایە لە ئەو مزاهراتانەی کە کردویانە مەسجی خۆیان بە دەستهەڵاتدارانی عێراق گەیاندووە و دەبێ ئێمە هەست بە مەسئولیەت بکەین ئەوەی کە زۆر پێم سەیرە ئینی حتا ئێستاش باس لەوە دەکرێت کە وڵاتانی دەرەکی دەستیان هەیە لە مزاهراتی عێراق ئۆکەی با ئێمە بڵێن 70% خەڵکی خەتای خەڵکی ترە لە دەرەوە دەستیانە بەڵام 30% دەبێ ئێمە خۆمان وەکو عێراقی دابنیشین بیر لەوە بکەینەوە خەلەلەکان لەکوێ بوون و هەوڵ بدەین ئەمانە ڕاست بکەینەوە دەوری هەرێمی کوردستان دەورێکە ئێمە هەموو هەوڵێکمان ئەوەیە بۆ ئەوەی وەزعەکە ئارام ببێتەوە و هەوڵیشمان لەگەڵ بەغدا بەردەوامە بۆ ئەوەی بتوانین پێکەوە ڕێگەیەک بدۆزینەوە بۆ ئەوەی پێکەوە لەو مشکلە دەربچین.
Thank you very much, and I'll come back to you in a minute on some of the other implications of what's happened recently for the Kurdistan region in particular. Adel Jubeir, let me come to you, maybe coming with a slightly different angle. I mean, it had appeared in the lead-up to this attack that there was some important discussions taking place between the Saudi government, the Iraqi government, potentially also involving some outreach to Iran or from Iran out to Saudi Arabia as well. Where does this leave obviously the events that took place, the assassination of Soleimani? Where does this leave, in your opinion, from a Saudi perspective, the situation in Iraq, prospects for stability in that immediate region? I'll come to Iran maybe a bit more in a minute, but could you say a word or two about Iraq first?
Well, first of all, I want a point of clarification. I'm the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs. Yes. Faisal Al-Farhan Al-Saud is the minister who was appointed late last year. With regards to Iraq, Saudi Arabia takes its relationship with Iraq very, very seriously. We have historic links with Iraq. We have tribal links with Iraq. We have family ties with Iraq. Every Arab and every Muslim is part of the Abbasid Empire, which had its headquarters in Baghdad. So it's a very important country. We believe in Iraq's stability. We want to be supportive of Iraq. We opened up a new chapter with Iraq. We established institutional links with Iraq through a special consultation committee that includes more than 10 different ministries in order to see how we can enhance trade, how we can enhance travel, how we can open up border crossings, how we can work on supporting Iraq with its economic development. Iraq doesn't need support. Iraq has the second largest oil reserves in the world. Iraq needs something to help it through the transition. And we are very concerned about, and have been and continue to be, about Iran's meddling in Iraq's affairs. We're very concerned about Iran trying to steal Iraq's resources by dumping Iranian products into Iraq, by trying to mobilize and set up militias that are loyal to Iraq and not loyal to Iran and not the Iraqi state. And we believe that the reason that Iraq has not been able to get up on its feet the way it should have and could have is because of the interference by the Iranians. We are committed to our relationship with Iraq. We will continue to work on improving our relationship with Iraq. Our conversations with Iraq and consultations with Iraq are ongoing and have been. After the Iranians attacked the oil facilities at Abqaiq, the Iraqi government was reaching out to us to see what we can do about de-escalation. We have made it clear to our brothers in Iraq that we don't want escalation. We don't want a war. A war is disruptive to everybody. We will take our time investigating the attack, and we will take our time, and once the conclusions are known, we will make them public, and we will see what we can do, steps that we can take to deter Iran from any further aggression against us. That's been sort of the message. You talked about an unsettled Middle East. We see Iran's negative hand in Yemen. We see Iran's negative hand in providing weapons and IEDs and training terrorists in Bahrain. We see Iran trying to recruit among our Shia population. We see Iran engaged in Iraq, in Syria, and in Lebanon. I think what has happened in Iraq to a large extent is also a reaction to Iran's heavy-handed interference in Iraq. And we also saw that in Lebanon with the demonstrations against Hezbollah by Lebanese, including Shia, in the south of Lebanon. And that's a very strong message to the Iranians that they should take care of their people first, they should get out of Arab lands, and they should desist from continuing to be the chief sponsor of terrorism in the world. They should stop providing ballistic missiles to terrorist organizations, and they should accept the international rule-based order which was established in the 1600s after the signing of the Treaty of Westphalia, and the principles associated with it, which is non-interference in the affairs of other countries, respect for the sovereignty of nations, and respect for international law. Once Iran is willing to do this, Iran will become a normal member of the international community.
But do you sense that there's been any change? Do you see a potential opening, given that not only did the attack happen, but obviously there was the tragic shooting down of the Ukrainian International Airlines flight immediately after? You get this sense there were many protests emerging, obviously, on the streets as well throughout Iran prior to the attack. It looks a bit like, as in Iraq, the government has not been able to manage and take this moment to mobilize support in Iran for itself again. As Saudi Arabia looks to the future, I would argue, it may not be able to see a US that can be as reliable a partner for its security as it was in the past. What kind of role can Saudi Arabia play right now? And is it trying to play a role? Reaching out, even if it's informally, to Iran, do you see any straws in the wind of a change in its position that could be drawn on? Let me start with that.
The escalation is really coming from the Iranian side.
Well, that's good.
We haven't fired a bullet at Iran. We haven't launched a missile at Iran. We haven't planted terrorist cells against Iran. We haven't assassinated Iranian diplomats or blown up Iranian embassies, as they have with us. So we can't de-escalate because there's nothing to de-escalate from on our side. All the aggression has come to us from Iran. So it's up to the Iranians to decide if they want to provoke a reaction from the international community or not. The point about America disengaging from the Middle East, we have been hearing since the Obama administration. That's not the case. The famous pivot to Asia, everybody thought President Obama is going to leave the Middle East and leave the Gulf, you better fend for yourself. What happened? He almost doubled the American military presence in the Gulf. That's not a pivot to Asia. That's a doubling down on the Middle East. When people talked about President Trump rearranging the American forces in northern Iraq and withdrawing 150 soldiers, but still kept the air cover for the Kurds and still kept the protection of the oil fields so that the Assad regime cannot have access to it, all the pundits were saying, America is withdrawing from the Middle East. What are you going to do now that America is withdrawing? He sent almost 5,000 soldiers to Saudi Arabia. That's a doubling down. He sent an aircraft carrier into the Arabian Gulf. He sent more naval forces into the Gulf. He sent anti-ballistic missile systems to Saudi Arabia. That's not withdrawing. So we have bet on the United States since President FDR met with King Abdulaziz in 1975. And every time there was a crisis, the United States has come through for Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia has come through for the United States. This is a really deep and broad relationship that is critically important to both countries, and I don't see it going anywhere but up.
Okay, well, I will posit that while the US may still be engaged, it feels like a more transactional and harder to manage and maybe more unpredictable type of US foreign policy in the past. But let me turn to Dr. Fuad, Deputy Prime Minister. The status of forces, the basing arrangement, obviously was one of the immediate results, the vote at least on its continuation, an advisory vote as I understand it in the Iraqi parliament, but one nonetheless that needs to be resolved. How do you see the relationship with the United States playing out? What is the objective, do you think, of the caretaker government in the next steps on this, trying to retain the US engagement, but in a way that is acceptable to all of the different parties in the government?
The Prime Minister, Adel Abdel Mahdi, he himself went to the parliament. And this is a fact. He suggested to the parliament to accept the resolutions of withdrawing of the forces from Iraq. And of course, they are talking about all forces which are based in Iraq. So there is a decision of the parliament there. And on the basis of the decision of the parliament, the government started to communicate with the outside world, including the United States and NATO countries. And during this visit, also the president of the country, Dr. Barham Saleh, and we had discussion with President Trump, but also with the NATO Secretary General about how to deal with this decision of the parliament. And of course, there is a debate among political parties in Iraq, debate in the Iraqi societies, debate even in the government about this issue, to be honest. And we will see how we are going to deal with it. Anyhow, for everybody is clear that we need to start dialogue with all these countries and to discuss this matter. How are we going to ask these countries to leave, or are we going to reach an agreement with these countries to let's say, reorganize themselves on different bases?
It sounds like you're asking the question I was asking to yourself, if you see what I'm saying.
Because it is a question still. Yes. It is a question. As I said, it is a debate in Iraqi society. It is a debate among political parties. And of course, when I am talking about the decision of the parliament, it is true that the majority, the decision has been taken by the majority. But it is also true the Kurds and the Sunni representatives, they were now there. So that's why it is a debate, and it is still a question.
Well, I fear it might continue to be, and I can see it impatient, but I want to bring President Barzani in a little bit on how you see the risk of either US withdrawal or a different conditionality to it, and obviously the Kurdish region in particular, looking across your border into northeast Syria as well, has experienced some of that unpredictability of the US engagement in, out. How do you see the US relationship, and what does it mean for your strategy?
خوي اما با یکم شد پرسیار بکەین بۆ هێزەکانی ئەمریکا و تەحالفی دەولی لە عێراقن. هێزەکانی ئەمریکا لەسەر داوای حکوومەتی عێراق لە ساڵی 2014 کە داعش نزیک ببوو لە مەتاری بەغدا داوای یارمەتی کرد لە ڕێگەی UN-ەوە مەجلسی ئەمنی دەولی داوای یارمەتی کرد. و ئەم هێزانە هەتا ئێستا لە عێراق ماونەتەوە و یارمەتی هێزەکانی عێراقی دەدەن بە پێشمەرگەشەوە و ئەرکیان وازەحە و معلومە. هاوکاری هێزەکانی عێراق و تەدریب پێکردنیانە لە شەڕی دژی داعش. هەتا ئێستاش ئەم مشنە بەردەوامە. بە بۆچوونی ئێمە ئەوەی لە پەرلەمانی عێراق کرا کارێکی دروست نەبوو. جار دوو پێکهاتەی سەرەکی لە عێراق کە سونە و کە کوردن هەردوو لایەن بە هیچ شێوەیەک تەئیدی ئەم هەنگاوەیان نەکردووە. بە بۆچوونی ئێمە عێراق پێویستی بە یارمەتی نێودەوڵەتی بە پێویستی بە ئەمریکا هەیە، چونکە مەسەلەی داعش سەرهەڵدانەوەی تەروریزم لە عێراقدا مەسەلەیەکی زۆر جددیە و ئێمە پێمان وایە ئەم هەدەفە بە بێ یارمەتی کۆمەلگای نێودەوڵەتی و لە سەرویانەوە ئەمریکا ئەم هەدەفە تحقیق نابێتن و پێویستە هێزەکانی ئەمریکا لە عێراقدا بمێننەوە. بەشێکی تر ئەوەی کە جەنابی سەرۆک وەزیرانی عێراق داوا دەکاتن دەست بە مفاوەزاتێک بکرێتەوە و دکتۆر فواد جێگیری سەرۆک وەزیران ئیشارەتی پێدا، من پێم وایە ئەوە زۆر طەبیعیە کە جارێکی تر دانیشتن بکرێتن و شێوەی ئیشکردنی زیاتر لە بینی هێزەکانی عێراقی و لە بینی هێزەکانی تەحالف ڕێک بخرێتەوە و بەڵام مەسئلەی مەبدەئی مانەوەیان من پێم وایە مەبدەئی مانەوەیان پێویستە. سووریا مەسەلەیەکی زۆر معقەتە. یعنی ئەمەی کە لە سووریا ڕوودەدا لە نەتیجەی سیاسەتێکی چەند ساڵەیە کە بە غەڵەت هاتووە کە ئەحداسی سووریا دەستی پێکرد دوو جەبهە هەبوو. جەبهەیەک زۆر واضح بوو لەسەر یارمەتیدانی بەشار ئەسەد کە پێک دەهات لە رووسیا.
And they were supporting Syria to remain in power. There was another front. The European countries and the United States, they did not have a strategy. They did not have a vision. One day they were saying that we will set a red line with a blue line, red line. No one would understand how to address this issue, how to handle it. Until now, the crisis in Syria is ongoing. Until now, there is no clarity. No clarity how to deal with the situation in Syria. In our view, we are helping our brothers in Syria, the Kurds in Syria, in order to reach a political solution within the geography of Syria.
For those points, and I wanted to just let everyone know here, I would definitely want to bring you in as an audience. So please have a couple of questions ready. I want to ask one more question to Janine Plachette and then to Adel Al-Jubair. But please get a couple of questions ready because I want to go to you in just 2 minutes. Janine Plachette, let me just come to you first. Spinning out of this question about the US role, how difficult is it then for a UN special representative to try to play the role? To what extent are you getting multilateral support to be able to follow through at a time when the government strikes me as a bit stuck in being able to make any really firm progress forward? Are you entirely dependent on a resolution moving out from a caretaker government to a full-time government, or are you able to act in between in ways that are meaningful?
Look, the UN is in Iraq to serve the country and its people and its leadership and to serve stability. So caretaker status or not, we will continue our work. What we do comment on, for example, in our conversations, I can say it here, I mean, with the Deputy Prime Minister present and with President Barzani present, I can say it openly, is that we sometimes try to explain the impact of certain decisions. For example, the foreign troop withdrawal is, I mean, if you look at it from a distance, you understand what happened. I mean, for many Iraqis, what happened brought universal condemnation of the targeted killing because it was felt as a flagrant breach of Iraqi sovereignty. So what we saw in parliament, it was already referred to, was in particular a Shia decision, right? So that is a concern to me as well, because if we have Shia leadership, I'm not saying it's happening, but it's a concern I have if I see something like that, distancing itself from Sunni and Kurdish and other communities, then with the history of Iraq, I mean, we have to be awake, right? So these are things that we continue to point out. Now, the foreign troop withdrawal, I mean, it does not just present a security risk. It is also about the economy. It is also about dollar support to the Iraqi dinar. And if that support is being abolished, then the country will face an economic crisis very soon. So our advice is, I mean, respecting Iraq's sovereignty, take into account the financial, economic and political impacts. Don't do it hastily. And I think that Adel Abdulmati, the current prime minister, made it very clear by now that he wants to do it in friendship, that he wants to have a constructive dialogue, and that he wants to continue the fight against Daesh. And details will come soon, but give Iraq as well a bit of time and space to digest what happened. And if there is a new agreement to be discussed, then clearly most Iraqis, including the Kurds, I think I can say on behalf of the leadership of the Kurdish region as well, is that Iraq's sovereignty will have to be put central in the new agreement.
So I'm just before I go out to you, Adel Jubeir, let me just take you beyond and outside this part of the world to Libya, because it is very much in the news. The situation has probably worsened again, despite the efforts at ceasefire in recent weeks. It does appear that in this unsettled Middle East, the capacity for proxy intervention engagement, Turkey, Russia almost seem to be seeing in Libya an opportunity or a need to put down markers to protect their particular interests. How does this look from the Saudi perspective? Are you worried that there's an extension of almost of proxyism and of instability across the Middle East? As a country that's tried to keep things stable for so long, how do you look at the Libya thing in particular?
We think it's important that we maintain Libya's unity and territorial integrity. We think it's important that we have everybody abide by the UN resolution on a boycott of weapons going into Libya. We think that it's dangerous for people to insert themselves into Libya, and we've expressed that view publicly and through our statements. We are concerned about the flow of foreign fighters from Syria into Libya because we think this exacerbates the situation and makes it even worse. We are totally supportive of the efforts of Ghassan Salama to bring about a settlement in Libya, and we are consulting with our friends and allies in the US, in Europe, and among the neighboring countries, and we are emphasizing the importance of having one track and the importance of supporting that track as much as possible rather than have diverse tracks. We are very supportive and appreciative of the German diplomatic efforts to bring about the ceasefire, and we are urging all Libyan parties to abide by that ceasefire. We believe when you have a ceasefire, you can then work towards a political settlement and then you work towards implementation. It really is a shame that Libya, a country with so much resources, and something approaching $70 billion in frozen bank accounts and a small population, it really is a shame that the Libyans cannot find a way out in order to be able to develop their country and turn it into a tremendous place, because they have a small population and huge financial reserves, and they have oil reserves, oil production that they can sell. So there's nothing missing other than a settlement.
I could say the same about Iraq and many parts of the Middle East. Huge human potential, huge natural resource potential, and not able to get there. Let's get 2 or 3 questions in, and then we'll probably have time to do one last round and of comments, and we'll be out. Who would like to pose a question? Anyone? One at the front here, and if you can bring a microphone, then if there's anyone else, please raise your hand. Yeah. If you introduce yourself.
Mina Al-Arabi, I'm the editor-in-chief of The National in Abu Dhabi, but I guess especially here, more significantly, I'm from Iraq. I wanted to ask our current Minister of Finance about the issue of corruption, because really that's the big thing that many Iraqis complain about. Since he's not here, President Barzani, if I can ask you please about Iraqi national identity, because one of the things we've heard on the streets, not only in Iraq, in different parts of Iraq, about the idea of we want a homeland, we want a country that can protect us. So if you can address that, and also how you're hearing the voices. Yes, it's in Baghdad and in the south, but this is impacting the entire country, how that might be shifting your thinking about how the country's future looks.
In this shadow confrontation with the Iranians, but I was wondering if you could talk a bit about current Saudi strategy in Yemen and what we can see in the months to come. If I don't need to use the word de-escalation, will we see genuine progress towards ceasefire and a resolution to that conflict?
We have time for one more if anyone has a question. If not, I'm going to go back to the audience. Okay. Let me go to you, President Barzani. First, if we could just have a word about this. That was phenomenal about the protest throughout, is in the rejection of sectarianism. It seems to have accompanied the organisation of many governments in the Middle East. But how do you have a sort of national identity within the federal structure? How about this national identity? Could you say something about how you will manage the potential emergence of a more specific national identity?
I believe the biggest problem in Iraq, of course, is we don't see loyalty for a country called Iraq. There is loyalty.
You mean
Yes.
Oh, they changed the channels by mistake. It's now one. Or they
so
changed it. They
you want
changed
me
it
to
to two.
repeat it again?
Yes.
Okay, well, Kurdish, okay. خوي مشكلة لوي دست پیدا که. Is it Majid? It's okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we got it. Channel 2.
خوي كشكا أما يا بما يا ولاء بولاتك كبي بقطر عراق نيا. تدبيني لا عراق دا سنة هيا شيعة هيا تركمان هيا مسيحيت هيا مثلا أمان يا خو سويسراش عينا وايا يعني أمانة السويسرين بلام للايك خلقك بألماني قصدك للايك خلقك بفرنسي قصدك بلام أمولات أمانة همويان ولايك يان هيا بو أولاتي كتيدو داجين من بما يا موضوع ولانيا إما دبي بواقعي بيربكينوا إما دبي فرمولك بو أولاتي بيربكينوا چون اما همومان پیک و بتوانین لولاتێک دا بژین کە پێی بگوترێ عێراق یعنی دەبێ عێراق ئەساسی کۆکردنەوەی هەموو لایەکمان بێ دەبێ عێراق ببێتە ئەساسی کۆکردنەوە ئێمە زۆر کۆمەلگای جیاوازین زۆر وقت بەڵام من پێما جوانی عێراق لەوەدایە و لێمە کوردمان هەیە عەرەبمان هەیە مسيحيمان هيا تركمان يزيدي صائبة نيمت همو شتيك هيا لولاته مسألة إما دبي بخومان شتيك بدوزينوا كهمومان بيكا وبتوانين لسر متفق بينون بيب مايا أو شتدبي عراق بي وأما براستي وكو كرد إما دمانوي كشكاني خومان لچوارچوي عراق دا چاره سر بكين بلان پرسیارك أويا اگر بغدا بچاوکی تر سیری ام پیک هاتانه بکریتن طبعا کیشه دروز دبی کیشه لعراق لسر چه دروز بود لسال 2000 یا 12 و 13 اوی که لفلوجه روی دو دستی پیکرد مظاهرات داوای چی آنده کرد؟ داوای هندک خدماتی آنده کرد بلام چون که اهمال کرا لنتیجه بو بسبب اوی اما داعشێک دروست بوو ئەم بەشانە دەبی خۆیان ببینن لە پرۆسەی سیاسی لە عێراق دە هەموو لایەک بۆ ئەوەی ئێمە هەمومان بتوانین لەسەر ئەوە ڕێککەوین لەسەر عێراق ڕێککەوین و ئەوەی جنێن من دەمەوێت یەک باسی کرد ئاخر قسەی دەمەوێت ئەوەش جواب بدەمەوە ئێمە بۆ چوونی خۆمان ئێستا شوایە عێراق پێویستی بە هێزەکانی ئەمریکا هەیە نە بۆ هەرێمی کوردستان بۆ هەموو عێراق بلام لنتيجة دائمة بشكل لعراق.
Thank you very much. Adal Jubair, you had a question specifically on Yemen. I know you actually wanted to get to that, so it's on my list as well. So please give us your thoughts. Again, a terrible attack over the weekend.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think in Yemen we're seeing a very strong de-escalation. After the attack against Abqaiq, the Houthis took credit for an attack they didn't know anything about. And people in Yemen blamed them and said, this is an attack against the world, not against Saudi Arabia. The Iranians are playing you. The Houthis announced the suspension of ballistic missile attacks against Saudi Arabia. So we had that track. We have the other track where we had a division between the southern secessionists and the transition council and the legitimate government. We were able to work very hard, and the Crown Prince personally spent a lot of time and effort to persuade all of the Yemeni factions to come back together into a unity government, and this happened. The Yemenis have a new government now. The new government is moving to Aden. We are working with the Yemenis on their security forces and counterterrorism efforts. And we are working very closely with Martin Griffith in order to move towards a comprehensive political settlements. As a consequence of the lack of attacks against Saudi Arabia, there has been a very, very substantial decrease in military operations in Yemen as a confidence-building measure. The Houthis asked us to do things for them at the port of Hodeidah, which we did, and that generated more goodwill. We're working on allowing medical flights to leave Sana'a airport as another goodwill gesture. We freed 200 Houthi prisoners as a goodwill gesture, and they freed a number of Saudi prisoners. So I believe that we may have some skirmishes from time to time, but the trend is towards a political settlement. We have made it very clear to the Houthis that they are part and parcel of Yemen. Nobody can deny this. We have made it very clear to them that they have a role to play in the future of Yemen, but they cannot have a monopoly, and they cannot have a militia outside the scope of the government. There will be no Hezbollah in Yemen. And they understand this. We have also made it very clear to all Yemenis that Saudi Arabia stands ready to assist them in reconstruction. We have set up a reconstruction office in Saudi Arabia that is looking at projects that can be implemented as soon as possible. And we need the war to stop, and we need the political settlement in order to activate the reconstruction of Yemen.
Thank you. We're coming right to the end here. We're maybe 1 minute over. Janine Plachet, I'd want to give you a last word as well. If there was one thing, just very quickly, one thing that you'd want from the international community to support what you're trying to do right now in Baghdad, rather than what you may be advising or hoping from the caretaker government and the various groups there, what would the one thing that you're asking for you'd need from the international community to help you do your job?
To be frank in the messages we convey, and not to sugarcoat the situation, but also to recognize Iraq's great potential, whether you're up north in the Kurdish region or down south, because it has great potential. And every disaster or every drama can also be turned into a stepping stone for a better future. But then we have to do it, and we have to do it together. But I mean, to recognize Iraq's potential should not be confused with foreign meddling into Iraq's domestic affairs. Now, there's one message that is important, and it was raised by the lady over there on corruption. The thing for the international community, and I mean, don't shoot the messenger. This is just me, absorbing all the information I received. The many donors and the international community is tired of fighting the Iraqi system. And I refer to corruption for the sake of helping the country. So here there is lots of work to be done for the Iraqi authorities. If we do not step up anti-corruption efforts in Iraq, we risk treading water on nearly every front. And that is an important message.
And I know this was the driver of really the beginning of the popular protests even 2 years ago,
exactly.
The anti-corruption protests, and it was that voice we heard. And I have to say, as an observer from the outside the Middle East, the frustration you hear among young people today who feel in a way their future has been taken away from them, that sense of desperation. If government's not able to fix it, obviously I worry, like I think everyone in this room, for the region's future. There is great potential. It's human as much as anything, and it's got to be unlocked. It's an unsettled Middle East. Let's hope, all of us, it does not get more unsettled over the next 4 to 5 months, but I think there's no guarantee on that front at all. But I'd say, please all, thank you very much for your commitment and interest. At a time when there's so many other things on the agenda, it's important the Forum finds the time to keep playing on the Middle East as they've done here. Thank you very much, panelists, for some good answers. Thank you very much. Strong hand for the panel.